Joined by our guys, former players, Rick Smith, George Reese, and our buddy J.D. Smith, T-Bone from 97.1 The Fan. Don't forget, you can listen to every Buckeye basketball game on 97.1 The Fan. George, we begin with you. How about the grit this Buckeye basketball team showed today, showed in the last 8 games, really, but today down by 17 in the first half. They come back, they make another run in the second half, get it to overtime.
Yeah, Dom, I think grit is the perfect word. I mean, these guys could have laid down because we've been saying they've been playing with house money ever since they locked in the number 2 seed with the win over Purdue. But hats off to this team coming out and saying, you know what, we ain't going to go out like this in the championship game, and battling a team to end up getting a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament.
Rick, you look at what they've been through. The last 4 games of the regular season was brutal. Now 4 games in the Big Ten tournament was brutal. I mean, everything was a nail biter, overtimes, all that business. How big of a concern do you think fatigue is heading into the big dance?
I think, these guys are young enough and they're seasoned enough to know what they have to do to get to the next level. And we've got a little bit of an easy game, at least to start off with, and will give us a little bit of momentum going into deeper into the tournament. So I think they're in good shape. They got a little bit of time to get ready, and they should be fine.
JD, they are the 2 seed in the South Regional. Baylor is the 1 seed in that region. Do you like the bracket? Do you like Ohio State's chances?
Yeah, I really do. I would like kind of the matchups really with any team that they're going to go up against right now, just because I know that there have been difficulties, right? The last 3 minutes of games are tough for this team right now. But the other side of that is they've made it through almost every one of those challenges and found a way to win when it mattered in tournament games. So to me, that's huge. They need to get their legs under them. They need to get some rest. I'm glad they're playing on Friday, not Thursday. But this team has found some things in the last couple days, last 4 days, really, that I just think are the things you have to have when you get to tournament time. They know how to find a way despite whatever else is thrown at them. So, yeah, a couple lucky bounces went their way in this Big Ten tournament, but I think they found themselves again, which is good because this team, the way they were playing 3 weeks ago, could win it all. And this team right now is getting back to that form.
George, you look at Kyle Young, obviously dealing with a second head injury in what a couple-week period. Chris Holtmann was asked after the game. He says, I don't know right now, fellas. If he can't play, he's the X factor, in my opinion. That would be huge.
Dom, I've talked about my affection for Kyle Young throughout this show and how I felt he was one of the most important guys on this team. But you got to look at the bright side. If Justice Sueing is stepping up and coming out with 22 points and 4 rebounds, and you still get that impact of C.J. Walker being the senior leader and getting those points off the bench with 16 and 6 assists, that can definitely make up for what he does. But there's no replacing Kyle Young because he's that big guy that you don't have to run a play for. His energy is unmatched, and you just love the way he finishes in traffic.
Rick, you look at what Dwayne Washington Jr. did today, a career-high 32 points. I'm going to say it, this team will go as far as he takes them. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. I mean, I'd like to see Kyle Young back because it helps on the big guys that we have trouble with, seems to have trouble with, just about game in and game out, especially through these last few games with the big guys we had to play. But I think you're absolutely right. Dwayne's the guy. He's going to take the ball in. He's going to do what's necessary for us to get to the next level.
JD, this club was picked 7th at the beginning of the year in the Big Ten. How has Chris Holtmann done it? I mean, how much has this surprised you, I guess, with this club?
You know, it probably shouldn't surprise us because Chris Holtmann with these teams the last few years has really been through some ups and downs. I mean, you had teams that early in the season looked like they were destined for a Final Four run, and then they fell apart in January. They kind of started to figure that out this year. But then they had still a mini collapse, late into the season where you almost felt like they were backing in as they went to this Big Ten tournament. So the way they've turned it around, I think Chris Holtmann has done a great coaching job. I think it's a lot on these players too. I mean, the players know what they're supposed to do. It's about finding yourself in those moments and making the plays when it counts. But yeah, I think Chris Holtmann has done a tremendous job getting this team mentally to a space where they can be successful. And that's the job of any elite basketball coach, is getting your guys in positions where they can go make plays.
George, this NCAA tournament, because of COVID, will be primarily played in Indianapolis. The Big Ten tournament was in Indianapolis. Does that give Big Ten teams like Ohio State an advantage?
Yes, I would think so. I mean, if you look at all things that encompass the NCAA tournament, you already got the physical and emotional nature, but then the travel schedules, just think you don't have to go far to, to play your game. Your team can leave, maybe sometimes have your shoot around that same morning. So I definitely think it's an advantage for the Midwest schools because just your transition to playing a game or the time that you're playing a game is not going to be too much different from a lot of schools out West.
Rick, you've always been a guy that believes the glass is half full instead of half empty. But as you look at Ohio State heading into this NCAA tournament, what's your biggest concern or concerns?
I think control of the ball and ball handling is essential. We can't keep giving it up when we get in the lane and not have any place to go. I think I'm a little concerned about Kyle Young's absence because, as we've all agreed, he's the workhorse of this team, and I think he's what drives them to play as hard as they do when they do. As long as we take care of the ball, I'm feeling pretty good about how we're going to go from here.
JD, last thing, if you had to pick a word to describe this team, is resilience the word?
Resilience is pretty good. I would think that there's a little bit of just, there's resilience, but there's also that level of polish on this team where they are a gritty team. They are a fight you team. They are a team that's not going to back down from a challenge, but they have got guys who also do all the pretty things you have to do in basketball. They got outside shooters. They got guys who can drive the lane. Defensively, it's 2021. It's a little bit different defense than, what George played and certainly what guys have played all throughout, so they're getting it done in that way enough. They can do enough to make it happen, but defensively, that's probably the weakest part for this team. But yeah, you can't teach what they've been through the last 4 days or really the last 3 weeks. I mean, they're going to need all that experience when they get to this tournament.